How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, March 22nd, 2021, out here in this quarantine. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do a review of the Elite performances from yesterday, Sunday, March 21st, and of course, I'm going to preview all the Elite matchups and performances that are coming up today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. With the NFL season being over in February, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl, and with the MLB season starting up in just over a week, I'm going to get started with the NBA before I lead over into March Madness. Starting with the NBA's primetime performances. In the middle of the day, the reigning Eastern Conference champions, Miami Heat, hosted the Indiana Pacers. And in this matchup, the Pacers would beat the Miami Heat 109-106 in overtime after a lot of great back and forth play. But eventually, it will be the Pacers that prevailed to pick up their 19th win this season. For the Miami Heat in this matchup, their elite starting small forward, Jimmy Butler, would finish with 21 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists in 42 minutes, as he shot 7 for 16 from the field and 7 for 8 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Miami Heat would be their elite starting center, Bam Adebayo, out of Kentucky, who finished with 29 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in 36 minutes, as he shot 11 for 21 from the field, and just like Jimmy Butler, he shot 7 for 8 from the foul line as well, as he went on to lead the entire game in scoring. For the Indiana Pacers, their leading scorer would be their now two-time All-Star power forward, Damonte Sabonis, who finished with 17 points and 11 rebounds, as well as 3 steals and 5 turnovers. And he did foul out in 35 minutes, as he shot 5 for 13 from the field and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. With this win, the Indiana Pacers, like I just said, are now 19-22. That is tied with the Chicago Bulls for the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have won their last 2 games. They've won 4 of their last 10. They and the Bulls sit a game behind the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Charlotte Hornets outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they sit 10 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers out east. With this loss, the Miami Heat are now 22-21. That is the 5th best record in the Eastern Conference right now in the season. They've lost their last 3 games, even though they've won 6 of their last 10 as a club or as a team. And they are sitting half a game behind the 4th place Atlanta Hawks, and they are sitting half a game ahead of the 6th place Boston Celtics within the Eastern Conference playoff picture, and they sit 8 full games behind the 1st place 76ers out east. Jumping to the second primetime matchup of the night, jumping to Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets hosted the Washington Wizards, and in this matchup, the Nets would get the best of the Wizards, winning 113-106 after some amazing back-and-forth basketball that went down to the last minute as well. The big quarter would come in the second, where Brooklyn outscored Washington by 12. For the Wizards in this matchup, their starting center, Alex Len, would finish with 20 points and 9 rebounds, as well as 2 blocks in 29 minutes, as he shot 8 for 12 from the field and 4 for 5 from the foul line. Rui Hachimura, their second-year player out of Gonzaga, would finish with 20 points and 10 rebounds in 40 minutes, as he shot 9 for 11 from the field and a perfect 2 for 2 from the line. Their elite starting shooting guard, Bradley Beal, would finish with 17 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, and 6 turnovers in 39 minutes, as he shot 6 for 15 from the field, 1 for 3 from the three-point line, and 4 for 5 from the free throw line. And their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard out of UCLA, Russell Westbrook, who finished with 29 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists, and 2 steals, and as well as 8 turnovers in 39 minutes, as he shot 10 for 20 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and 7 for 9 from the foul line. I imagine he's going to be cheering for UCLA today. And then looking out to how Brooklyn fared in this matchup, their elite starting shooting guard, James Harden, would finish with 26 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 steals in 39 minutes. He shot 10 for 23 from the field, 3 for 9 from 3, and 3 for 4 from the foul line. The Nets' leading scorer for the night would be their elite starting point guard, Kyrie Irving, out of Duke, who finished with 28 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 35 minutes, as Irving shot 10 for 25 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 7 for 7 from the line. And coming off the bench, making his debut for the Brooklyn Nets, would be their elite power forward and the newly 32, Blake Griffin, who played 15 minutes, and in those 15 minutes, he would finish with 2 points and 2 rebounds, as well as a block in 15 minutes as he shot 1 for 2 from the field. With this win, the Brooklyn Nets are now 29-14. That is the second best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have won 8 of their last 10. They now sit 1 game behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers, and within the playoff picture, they sit 1 game ahead of the third place Milwaukee Bucks. And with this loss, the Washington Wizards are now 15-26. That is the third worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have actually lost 8 of their last 10. And they now sit 5 games behind the Knicks and Hornets outside of the playoff picture, as they sit 14 full games behind the first place 76ers out east, to give a sense of where the Wizards stand. And then last but not least, jumping out to Phoenix, the last primetime game was in Phoenix. Not expecting LeBron James to be out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain, but I'll continue. But in this matchup, the Suns would beat the Lakers 111-94. They went on to outscore LA by 15 points in the first half, and they virtually carried that momentum through the end of the game. For the Lakers in this matchup, their starting point guard, Dennis Schroeder, would finish with 22 points in 30 minutes as he shot 8 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. And their leading scorer will come off the bench as the reigning NBA Sixth Man of the Year, Montrezl Harrell, out of Louisville, would finish with 23 points and 10 rebounds in 34 minutes as he shot 10 for 13 from the field. He also shot 3 for 8 from the foul line. Not that great, but he still went on to lead the team in points. For the Phoenix Suns in this matchup, their elite starting point guard Chris Paul would finish with 11 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists, and 3 steals in 32 minutes as he shot 3 for 11 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting center and former number 1 overall pick Deandre Ayton would tie for the team high and the game high in points as he finished with 26 points and 8 rebounds in 32 minutes. He shot 10 for 13 from the field and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. And tied with him for the team high in points would be the Phoenix Suns' elite starting shooting guard out of Kentucky, Devin Booker, who finished with 26 points, 9 rebounds, and 4 assists in 34 minutes as he shot 11 for 22 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 3 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 28-13. That is the second best record in the Western Conference, as they have won their last 2 games in 8 of their last 10. In the playoff picture, they now sit 2 games behind the first place Utah Jazz, and they sit 1 game ahead of the defending champions Los Angeles Lakers with this win. And with this loss, the Los Angeles Lakers are now 28-15, as they have now lost their last 2 games. They've won 6 of their last 10, and in the playoff picture, they now sit 1 game behind the second place Phoenix Suns, and they sit 1 game ahead of their Staples Center roommates, the Los Angeles Clippers, to give a sense of where the Lakers are. And looking at the other games that weren't on prime time yesterday, jumping to Houston, the Houston Rockets hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder, and after the Oklahoma City Thunder went on to outscore Houston by about 4 in the first half, it was a very close game back and forth, but the Thunder would hand the Rockets their 20th straight loss of the season, which of course is still a franchise record for them, and I think is the 6th longest losing streak in the NBA history so far. And as of right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder are making sure that is still running. For the Houston Rockets in this matchup, their starting shooting guard Victor Oladipo would finish with 23 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals in 41 minutes as he shot 9 for 15 from the field, 4 for 8 from 3, and he made his only free throw attempt of the night. Their elite starting point guard John Wall would finish with 24 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals in 35 minutes as Wall shot 7 for 18 from the field, 1 for 7 from 3, and 9 for 12 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Houston Rockets would be their starting center, Christian Wood, who finished with 27 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 36 minutes, and as he shot 9 for 16 from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, and 7 for 8 from the foul line. And for the Thunder in this game, their starting small forward, Luguentz Dort, first of all, would get the block on John Wall that would, of course, seal their win. But, of course, in this game as well, he led the team in scoring as he finished with 23 points, in 33 minutes as he shot 10 for 22 from the field, 3 for 10 from 3 as well. And with this win, the Oklahoma City Thunder are now 18-24. That is tied with the New Orleans Pelicans for the fourth worst record in the entire Western Conference. But the Thunder have won 5 of their last 10. They sit 4.5 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks out west, and they sit 12.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz in the entire conference. With this loss, the Houston Rockets are now 11-30, which is the second worst record in the Western Conference, despite the fact that they've lost 20 straight games. The Timberwolves still somehow have a worse record, and with this loss, they now sit 11 games out of the playoff picture behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks, and they sit 19 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz, to give a sense of where the Houston Rockets stand as of right now. Jumping out to Denver, the Denver Nuggets hosted the New Orleans Pelicans, and in this matchup, the Pelicans would beat the Nuggets 113-108 after outscoring Denver by 15 points in the second quarter alone. For the Denver Nuggets in this matchup, their elite starting point guard, Jamal Murray, would finish with 23 points and 7 assists in 35 minutes as he shot 9 for 16 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Denver Nuggets would be their elite starting center, Nikola Jokic, who would finish with 29 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists, as well as 5 turnovers in 35 minutes, as he shot 13 for 19 from the field and 3 for 4 from 3 as well. And then for the New Orleans Pelicans in this matchup, their starting shooting guard out of Virginia Tech, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, would finish with 20 points in 31 minutes as he shot 8 for 15 from the field, and he made his only free throw of the night. And of course, the Duke duo would score 30 points each. Their elite starting power forward and first-time NBA All-Star Zion Williamson out of Duke would finish with 30 points and 6 rebounds in 35 minutes as he shot 9 for 13 from the field. He made his only three-pointer of the night, so he was 1 for 1 from 3, and he went 11 for 14 from the free throw line. Then also tied with him for the team high would be their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram, who came out, 3 years before? But either way, he would finish with 30 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals in 36 minutes as he shot 11 for 23 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the line. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 18-24. Like I just said, they are tied with the Oklahoma City Thunder for the 4th worst record in the entire Western Conference, as they have won 4 of their last 10 games. They now sit 4.5 games behind the 8th place Dallas Mavericks outside of the playoff picture, as they sit 12.5 games behind the Utah Jazz in the entire conference. With this loss, the Denver Nuggets are now 25-17. They are tied with the Portland Trailblazers for the 5th best record in the Western Conference, as they have still won 8 of their last 10 games despite this loss. In the playoff picture, they and the Trailblazers sit a game and a half behind the 4th place Los Angeles Clippers, and they also sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place San Antonio Spurs. They sit 5.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz to get a sense of how far they are behind first place. Jumping out to Boston, the Celtics hosted the Orlando Magic, and in this matchup, the Celtics would beat the Magic 112-96. They went on to outscore Orlando by 20 points in the second and third quarter combined. And through that, they're able to establish the momentum to give them their 21st win of the season and get back to 500. In this loss for Orlando, their 2-time All-Star center, Nikola Vucevic, would finish with 22 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 assists in 37 minutes, as he shot 9 for 20 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and 1 for 2 from the foul line. And then for the Boston Celtics in this matchup, their elite starting point guard, Kemba Walker, would finish with 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 32 minutes, as he shot 5 for 11 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. Their elite starting small forward and now 2-time All-Star Jason Tatum would finish with 23 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists in 29 minutes, as he shot 7 for 13 from the field, 5 for 8 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. And their leading scorer would be their first-time All-Star shooting guard out of Cal, Jaylen Brown, who finished with 34 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists in 33 minutes, as he shot 12 for 24 from the field and 10 for 18 from 3 for the night. He made 10 3-pointers, period. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 21-21. That is the sixth best record in the entire Eastern Conference. They're the only team out east sitting at 500. As they have won 6 of their last 4 as a team. In the playoff picture, they sit half a game behind the 5th place Miami Heat, and they sit half a game ahead of the 7th place New York Knicks and the 8th place Charlotte Hornets, as they sit 8.5 games behind the 1st place Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. With this loss, the Orlando Magic are now 14-28. That is the second worst record in the entire Eastern Conference, as they have lost 9 of their last 10. They now sit, what would that be? 6.5 games behind the Knicks and the Hornets outside of the playoff picture looking in, as they sit 15.5 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. Jumping out to Cleveland, the Cleveland Cavaliers hosted the Toronto Raptors, and in this matchup, the Cavaliers would beat the Raptors 116-105, especially after outscoring Toronto by 14 in the third quarter alone. For the Raptors in this matchup, their elite starting power forward, Pascal Siakam, would finish with 9 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals in 25 minutes, as he shot 4 for 12 from the field and 1 for 3 from 3. Their elite starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, would finish with 18 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists in 40 minutes, as he shot 5 for 14 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Raptors last night would be Fred VanVleet, their starting shooting guard out of Wichita State, who finished with 23 points, 7 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in 41 minutes, as he shot 8 for 24 from the field. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. He shot 5 for 15 from 3, and he made both his free throws on the night. And for the Cleveland Cavaliers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting point guard, Colin Sexton, out of Alabama, who finished with 36 points and 2 steals, as well as 6 turnovers in 39 minutes, as he shot 13 for 24 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Cleveland Cavaliers are now 16-26. That is the 4th worst record in the entire Eastern Conference, as they have won 5 of their last 10 either way. They now sit 4.5 games out of the playoff picture behind the Knicks and the Hornets, as they sit 13.5 games behind the first place Philadelphia 76ers in the conference. And with this loss, the Toronto Raptors are now 17-25. They have the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference, as they have lost their last 8 games. They still sit 1 game ahead of the Cleveland Cavaliers, as the Raptors sit 3.5 games out of the playoff picture behind the Knicks and the Hornets, and they sit 12.5 games behind the first place Sixers. And then jumping out to Detroit, the Detroit Pistons would host the Chicago Bulls, and the Bulls would end up outscoring the Pistons by 13 in the fourth quarter, and by beating the Pistons 100-86 by 14 for the entire game. For the Detroit Pistons in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their starting small forward, Jeremy Grant, who finished with 26 points in 36 minutes, shooting 9 for 22 from the field and 7 for 9 from the foul line. And for the Chicago Bulls in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their first-time All-Star, Zach LaVine, who finished with 18 points and 3 rebounds in 33 minutes, as he shot 6 for 16 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Chicago Bulls are now 19-22, which ties them with the Indiana Pacers for the 9th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they have only won 4 of their last 10 games. They sit 1 game out of the playoff picture behind the 7th place Knicks and the 8th place Charlotte Hornets, and they sit 10 full games behind the Philadelphia 76ers in the conference behind first place. And with this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 12-30. That is the worst record in the entire Eastern Conference. They have lost 7 of their last 10 games. They sit 9.5 games out of the playoff picture behind the Hornets and the Knicks, as they sit 7.5 games behind, or the 17.5 games behind the first place 76ers in the entire conference. Jumping out to New York, the Knicks hosted the Philadelphia 76ers, who are currently leading the Eastern Conference. And in overtime, the Sixers were able to beat the Knicks 101-100, and off of a missed buzzer beater attempt by Julius Randle, the Sixers would seal their 30th win of the season. They are the first team in the Eastern Conference to seal 30 wins on the season. For the New York Knicks in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their first-time All-Star Julius Randle, as he finished with 24 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 5 steals, alongside 5 turnovers in 46 minutes. He shot 7 for 23 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line. Additionally, off the bench, their shooting guard Alec Burks would finish with 20 points and 6 rebounds, as well as 3 steals in 30 minutes, as he shot 8 for 17 from the field, 2 for 3 from 3, and a perfect 2 for 2 from the foul line. And for the Philadelphia 76ers in this matchup, their starting power forward Tobias Harris would lead the starters in scoring, as he finished with 20 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 36 minutes. He shot 5 for 18 from the field, but he would end up shooting 9 for 11 from the foul line. So at the end of the day, it would kind of even out. Their elite starting point guard, Ben Simmons, would finish with 16 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and 7 turnovers in 37 minutes, as he shot 8 for 17 from the field. And the leading scorer for the Philadelphia 76ers would come off the bench, as their shooting guard, Shake Milton, would finish with 21 points in 29 minutes, shooting 9 for 15 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3, and 2 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Philadelphia 76ers are now 30-13, leading the Eastern Conference. They have won their last 2 games, 8 of their last 10, and in the playoff picture, they now sit 1 game ahead of the second-place Brooklyn Nets. Just to give a sense of where they are, they've won 1 more game, and they've lost 1 less game, to give a sense of where they stand with the Nets. And with this loss, the Brooklyn Nets are now 21-22. That is the 7th best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 5 of their last 10 games, and if we're including this one, they now sit half a game behind the 6th place Boston Celtics, and they are tied with the Charlotte Hornets, who are sitting in the 8th spot, as they sit 1 game ahead of the 9th place Pacers and the 10th place Bulls, who are sitting outside of the playoff picture, just to show how crucial it was for them to win that game, just to show you where the New York Knicks sit in the East. And last but not least, taking you out to Portland, the Trailblazers hosted the Dallas Mavericks, and in this matchup, the Mavericks would end up outscoring Portland by 40 in the entire game. They won 132-92 to pick up their 22nd win of the season. They would go on to outscore Portland by 23 points in the third quarter, 29 in the second half, just to seal it out and run away with probably one of their biggest wins of the season. For the Trailblazers in this matchup, their leading scorer would be their elite starting point guard, Damian Lillard, who finished with 19 points and 4 assists in 30 minutes, as he shot 7 for 16 from the field and a perfect 5 for 5 from the free throw line. For the Dallas Mavericks in this matchup, their starting shooting guard, Josh Richardson, would finish with 21 points in 30 minutes, as he would go on to shoot 8 for 11 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. And the leading scorer for the Dallas Mavericks was who else but their elite starting point guard, Luca Doncic, who would finish with 37 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists, as well as 5 turnovers in 30 minutes, as he shot 13 for 19 from the field. He went 8 for 9 from 3, and he went 3 for 6 from the foul line. Of course, 37 points in 30 minutes is an incredible feat, a very elite feat. But continuing on, with this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 22-19. That is the 8th best record in the Western Conference, and they have won 7 of their last 10, to give a sense of where they are. In the playoff picture, they sit 1 game behind the 7th place San Antonio Spurs, as they sit 1 game ahead of the 9th place Golden State Warriors, who are the first team on the outside looking in. And they sit 8 full games behind the first place Utah Jazz out west. And with this loss, the Portland Trailblazers are now 25-17, as they are tied with the Denver Nuggets for the 5th best record out west. Even though they've lost this game, they still won 7 of their last 10 games. And in the playoff picture, they and the Nuggets sit a game and a half behind the 4th place Los Angeles Clippers, and they both sit a game and a half ahead of the 7th place San Antonio Spurs, just to show you how close the Trailblazers and the Mavericks are. They're only separated by 2.5 games within the conference. And overall, the Trailblazers sit 5.5 games behind the first place Utah Jazz, to give a sense of where they are out west. Those were the games from yesterday. Looking forward to today's games as we enter an entirely new week of basketball. The only game that's going to be on prime time will be at 9 o'clock, as the Milwaukee Bucks will host the Indiana Pacers on NBA TV. The Bucks are currently holding on to the 3rd best record in the East, as the Pacers are holding on to the 9th. A win here could very well see themselves get back into the playoff picture. And then outside of those games, at 7:30, the Cleveland Cavaliers will host the Sacramento Kings. At 8 o'clock, the Timberwolves, who have the worst record in the league, will host the Oklahoma City Thunder. At 8:30, the San Antonio Spurs will host the Charlotte Hornets. And at 9 o'clock, the Chicago Bulls will host the Utah Jazz, who currently hold the best record in the NBA. And at the same time, the Houston Rockets will host the Toronto Raptors, as the Rockets sport the worst streak in the NBA. At the same time, the Grizzlies will host the Celtics at 9 o'clock. And then at 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Clippers will host the Atlanta Hawks. And the Atlanta Hawks are current holders of the league's best winning streak. Jumping really quickly now to March Madness to give a sense of where we are at this moment. Going into yesterday, there were 32 teams to start the round of 32, and by the end of yesterday, coming into today, there are now 24 teams, as half of the Sweet 16 teams have already been selected. And I'm just gonna go through them by region, matchup by matchup, just to show how these teams performed. Starting off with the 1-9 matchup in the South Division, Baylor was able to beat Wisconsin 76-63, and of course this is coming off Baylor's win against Hartford 79-55, and Wisconsin came into this game after beating UNC 85-62. In this particular game, Baylor would end up outscoring Wisconsin by 13 in the first half. The second half was pretty even, but the first half would be what gave it to Baylor. Their leading scorer was their starting guard, Davion Mitchell, who finished with 16 points and 8 rebounds. And with this win, they will go on to face off against the winner between 5th-ranked Villanova and 13th-ranked Texas. Villanova, of course, got here after beating 12th-ranked Winthrop in the first round by 10, and 13th-ranked North Texas made it here after beating 4th-ranked Purdue by 9. And in this particular matchup, Villanova would pull out the 84-61 win after outscoring North Texas by 20 points in the first half. They were, of course, led by their forward, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who had 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. And right now, following that, the first Sweet 16 matchup out of the South will feature 1st-ranked Baylor and 5th-ranked Villanova. That will come next weekend. And looking at the other games in the South region, looking at the matchup between 3rd-ranked Arkansas and 6th-ranked Texas Tech. 3rd-ranked Arkansas was able to make it here after beating Colgate 85-68 in the first round, and Texas Tech made it here after beating 11th-ranked Utah State 65-53 in the first round. And in this matchup, after the game would come all the way down to the wire, Arkansas would come off. They would come away with the win, as Texas Tech actually had an open lane to the layup. It was actually a missed layup, a missed opportunity to go into overtime that granted Arkansas this gift win. Of course, they were led by their forward, Justin Smith, who had 20 points and 6 rebounds. And with this win, 3rd-ranked Arkansas will face off in the Sweet 16 against the winner of 7 Florida and 15th-ranked Oral Roberts. And last night, 15th-ranked Oral Roberts was able to pull off yet another upset to earn a way into the Sweet 16, as they were able to beat 7th-ranked Florida 81-78, led by their forward, Kevin O'Banner, who had 28 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 steals. They were actually trailing Florida by 15 points at the half, but they went on to outscore Florida by 8 in the second half. And their Cinderella story continues, as Oral Roberts will continue to the next round. And in the Sweet 16, they will face off against 3rd-ranked Arkansas. And this will come after they beat 2nd-ranked Ohio State. And Florida making it here after they beat 10th-ranked Virginia Tech. So the Sweet 16, the 4 teams representing the South in the Sweet 16 are 1st-ranked Baylor, 5th-ranked Villanova. They're going to face off against each other. And then 3rd-ranked Arkansas is going to face off against 15th-ranked Oral Roberts. And then looking out what's going on in the Midwest, looking at the 1-8 matchup in that region, 1st-ranked Illinois faced off against 8th-ranked Loyola Chicago. Of course, 1st-ranked Illinois made it here after beating 16th-ranked Drexel by 29 points. 8th-ranked Loyola Chicago made it here after beating 9th-ranked Georgia Tech by 11 points. And in this particular matchup, Loyola Chicago will pull off a 71-58 win after outscoring Illinois by 9 points in the first half and 4 points in the second to, I guess, ascend as the Kings of Illinois. They were led by their starting center, Cameron Krutwig, who had 19 points, 12 rebounds, and 5 assists. And with this win, they're able to knock the first 1 seed out of the tournament, as Illinois is the first 1 seed that will go out, and Loyola Chicago will advance to the Sweet 16 next week, where they would face off against the winner between 4th-ranked Oklahoma State and 12th-ranked Oregon State. And in this matchup, Oregon State, of course, or Oklahoma State made it here after beating Liberty by 9 in the first round, and Oregon State would make it here after beating Tennessee by 14. Or they beat 5th-ranked Tennessee by 14 in the first round. And in this matchup, 12th-ranked Oregon would get the best of Oklahoma State, winning 80-70 in this matchup. They were, of course, led by their guard, Ethan Thompson, who led the way with 26 points and 7 rebounds. They led by 14 at the half. They had an incredible first half. Oklahoma State really tried to come back, but it just simply wasn't even close to enough. And with this win, Oregon State will advance to play Loyola Chicago in the Sweet 16. That will be an 8-12 matchup. And then going to the other 2 seed, on this side, Houston was actually able to win their game as they beat 10th-ranked Rutgers 63-60. 2nd-ranked Houston, first of all, they got here by beating Cleveland State by 29 points in the first round, and 10th-ranked Rutgers got here after beating 7th seed Clemson by 4 points in the first round of that matchup. And in this matchup, in a game that would come all the way down to the end, Houston would win 63-60 to avoid the upset after a crazy comeback after they were down by 10 incredibly late in the second half. They were led by their guard and former Kansas transfer Quentin Grimes, who had 22 points and 9 rebounds. Houston went on to outscore Rutgers by 6 in the second half to, like I said, stop an upset in its tracks, and they would go on to face off against the winner between 3rd-ranked West Virginia and 11th-ranked Syracuse. And in this matchup, 11th-ranked Syracuse would pull off yet another upset in this round for the ages, as first of all, Syracuse got there by beating San Diego State by 16 points in the first round, and 3rd-ranked West Virginia made it here after beating 14th seed Morehead State by 17 points in the first seed. And in this particular game, Syracuse was able to outscore West Virginia by 6 in the first half. West Virginia tried to come back, but it just wouldn't be enough. They were led by their guard and son of legendary Coach Jim Boeheim. Buddy Boeheim would finish with 25 points. And with this win, 11th-ranked Syracuse will face off against 2nd-ranked Houston in the Sweet 16. Those will be the matchups set up for the 27th. So, of course, those will be some big games to look out for. And those were the 8 games from yesterday. Looking out to what's going on today for the second day of the second round of March Madness. Now we're jumping to the West and the East side of the bracket, starting, of course, on the West. First-ranked Gonzaga will face off against 8th-ranked or 8th-ranked Oklahoma, as Oklahoma looked to be the second team to knock out a first seed in the second round this year. This game will be at 2:40 on CBS. This will be the second game played today, as the first game played today will be within that bracket, as 2nd-ranked Iowa will face off against 7th-ranked Oregon. Of course, Iowa would make it here after advancing because they ended up beating Grand Canyon by 12 points. Oregon made it here because VCU contracted COVID, and then they would make it here on a no contest. But, of course, that matchup will be at 12:10. That game will be on CBS. That'll be a big game to look out for. The third game that'll be on will be 5:15. That'll be the 11-14 matchup on TBS between 11th-ranked UCLA and 14th-ranked Abilene Christian. Of course, UCLA making it here after beating 6th-ranked BYU 73-62 in the first round, and 14th-ranked Abilene Christian here after upsetting Texas. That looks to be a big matchup as they look to face off against the winner between Alabama and Maryland. Fourth game of the day will be at 6:10 on TNT between 5th-ranked Creighton and 13th-ranked Ohio. Creighton, of course, getting here after beating 12th-ranked UC Santa Barbara 63-62, and 13th-ranked Ohio here after upsetting 4th-ranked Virginia 62-58. And the winner of that matchup will play against the winner between 1st-ranked Gonzaga and 8th seed Oklahoma in the Sweet 16. The next game following that will be at 7:10 on CBS as the 1st seed in the East region, Michigan, will face off against the 8th seed in that region, LSU, as the winner of that matchup will face off against the winner of Colorado and Florida State. Michigan making it here after beating 16 seed Texas Southern by 16 points in the first round, and 8th seed LSU making it here after beating 9th-ranked St. Bonnie's by 15. LSU also looking to be yet another team that knocks out a 1st seed in the second rounds. And the next matchup following that will be the Florida State Colorado game. The winner of this matchup will face off against the winner between Michigan and LSU in the East region. Florida State, of course, making it here after beating 13th seed UNC Greensboro by 10, and 5th seed Colorado here after beating 12th seed Georgetown by 23 in the first round. And like I said, both of these matchups looking to see who's going to make it to the Sweet 16 matchup, and all these teams that are making it are incredibly formidable. And the second to last matchup will be at 8:45 on TNT, it'll be the East Region's 2-10 matchup between Alabama, second seed Alabama and 10 seed Maryland. 2nd seed Alabama here after beating 15 seed Iona by 13 in the first round, and 10 seed Maryland here after beating 7 seed UConn by 9 points in the first round. The winner of this game will play against the winner between 11 seed UCLA and 14 seed Abilene Christian in the Sweet 16 next weekend, just to get a sense of what's going on there. And last but not least, at 9:40, it will be the 3-6 matchup in the West region between Kansas and USC. 3rd seed Kansas, of course, is making it here after beating 14 seed Eastern Washington by 9 points in the first round, and 6 seed USC here after beating 11 seed play-in candidate Drake 72-56. And of course, the winner of this matchup will face off against the winner between 2nd seed Iowa and 7th seed Oregon in the Sweet 16 next weekend. So of course, a lot of great basketball to look forward to as we inch through March Madness one day at a time. And by the end of today, the number of teams in the tournament will go from 24 to 16, which is insane considering there were 68 at the very beginning. They're really about to cut, 52 teams like that. So that's what's going on with college basketball. Jumping out to the NHL just to keep it within the arena, but of course shift it to the ice. And to give a little bit more context, hockey teams have to play within their own division. Starting in the East Division, the Pittsburgh Penguins hosted the New Jersey Devils, and after a game that went to overtime, the Devils will pull off their 11th win of the season. And with this win, the New Jersey Devils are now currently sitting with the second worst record in the East Division as they trail the Capitals and the Islanders by 18 points in the table. Jumping to the Central, the Tampa Bay Lightning hosted the Florida Panthers, the two top teams in the Central. And the Lightning were able to pull off the 5-3 win. They went into this third period tied at 2, but the Lightning they had more in the tank, I guess. And with their 23rd win of the season, the Lightning are now sitting on top of the Central Division as they now sit 4 points over the second place Florida Panthers for the time being, as the Lightning have won their last 4 games. And then jumping out to Dallas, the Dallas Stars hosted the Nashville Predators, and in a game that went to a shootout, the Predators would edge the Stars out 4-3 to pick up their 14th win of the season. With this win, the Nashville Predators are now sitting with the 3rd worst or the 6th best record in the Central Division as they trail the first place Tampa Bay Lightning by a total of 19 points in the table. Last but not least, jumping out west, the LA Kings hosted the West-leading Las Vegas Golden Knights, and the Kings were able to pull off a 3-1 win. The best star of their night was their goalie Peterson, who had 41 saves, and with their 13th win of the season, the Los Angeles Kings are now sitting with the 5th best record in that division as they trail the first-place Golden Knights by 11 points in the table. To get a sense of what's going on in the NHL. And then looking out to what's going on today, starting with the prime times at 7:30, the Minnesota Wild are going to host the Anaheim Ducks. That game will be on NBC Sports Network. At 10 o'clock, the the Arizona Coyotes will host the Colorado Avalanche on ESPN Plus. At the same time, the Las Vegas Golden Knights will host the St. Louis Blues on ESPN Plus on that game will be on ESPN Plus. And then out of the games that won't be on prime time at 7 o'clock, the New York Rangers will host the Buffalo Sabres at 7. The Columbus Blue Jackets will host the Carolina Hurricanes at 7. At the same time, the Montreal Canadiens will host the Edmonton Oilers. The Ottawa Senators will host the Calgary Flames. And the Flyers will host the New York Islanders. At 10 o'clock, the Vancouver Canucks will host the Winnipeg Jets. And then at 10:30, the San Jose Sharks will host the Los Angeles Kings. And then last but not least, jumping out to see what's going on in the world of soccer, because, of course, we're coming off of a weekend late in the season, and there's a lot of movement, especially at the top of these tables as the pressure builds up. In the English FA Cup, I'm going to start there. In the quarterfinals, Chelsea was able to advance past Sheffield United. Ziyech would score the 92nd minute goal to put them up 2-0 after Sheffield scored an own goal in the first half. So they're going to the semis. And then Leicester City hosted Manchester United and were able to pull off a 3-1 win, upset Manchester United and make it on to the semifinals. And then looking out into the Premier League, Aston Villa hosted Tottenham, and then Tottenham was able to pull off the 2-0 win. Their second goal would come off of a penalty from their elite English striker, Harry Kane. With this win, Tottenham now sits sixth in the Premier League as they sit 2 points ahead of 7th place Liverpool and 1 point behind West Ham United in the table. West Ham United sitting there after their draw with Arsenal. That game was tied at 3, but big win for Tottenham as Tottenham is continuing to move up the table. Jumping into Serie A, Juventus hosted Benevento, and Benevento was able to pull off a 1-0 win. And AC Milan went to Fiorentina, and Milan was able to pull off a 3-2 win. Their first goal coming from their elite strikers, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and Fiorentina's second goal coming from Bayern Munich legend Franck Ribéry. So, of course, that was a good sight for eyes, and really quickly looking out to see where both these teams sit in the Serie A. AC Milan still sits second in the league behind Inter. They sit 6 points behind Inter with one more game played in the table. But the win was good for them as it does place more pressure on Juventus. With this loss, Juventus now sits 4 points below AC Milan in the table as they are also tied with Atalanta in points. They've played one less game than Atalanta, so that puts pressure on Juventus to win their next game in order to, of course, 1, retain their Champions League status, and 2, try to chase the crown, because a loss here was not in the plan. And looking out to what's going on in La Liga, out to Atletico. Atletico hosted Alaves, and they were able to pull off a 1-0 win as they scored in the 54th minute from their elite Uruguayan striker, Luis Suarez. And literally following this, Atletico Madrid still sits at the very top of La Liga. They sit 4 points over Barcelona, as Barcelona was able to get a win in their game as well. They went to Real Sociedad, and they were able to pull up a 6-1 win. Their first goal will come in the 37th minute off of their birthday boy, Antoine Griezmann, who turned 30 yesterday. I did a profile on him. Their next 2 goals would come from their American Serginho Dest, who scored his first 2 ever goals for Barcelona in his career. His first ever goal came off of an assist from Lionel Messi, so of course he's going to remember that forever. The 4th goal of the game came from Lionel Messi, their goated Argentinian striker, or forward. And then their 5th goal will come from Ousmane Dembele in the 75th minute. Then Real Sociedad would score, make it 5-1. And then the 6th goal will come from Lionel Messi in the 89th minute. He finished with 2 goals and an assist, as of course he's returning to GOAT form as per usual. And then looking out to what's going on in the table first off, Atletico Madrid still sits 4 points ahead of Barca, and Real Madrid sits 2 points behind Barca because Real Madrid drew their last matchup, which was not ideal, but there's still only 6 points that separates these teams, and they all still have 10 games to go in the league. Or no, they still have 8 games to go in La Liga. So, I mean, this will be very interesting to see how it all closes out. So, And then looking at a league that's even closer than La Liga, jumping down to Ligue 1, the team that was sitting at the top of Ligue 1 yesterday lost to Nîmes 2-1. Lille lost 2-1. And with this opportunity open, PSG faced off against Lyonnais. Both of these teams sat 3 points behind. Lyonnais tied. They were tied with Lille in goal differential. So if they won, they would take number one overall. And if PSG, they were blowing them out the water in goal differential. So if PSG took the win, then they would of course take number one in France. So in this matchup with the Ligue 1 up for grabs, the first goal would come from their elite French forward, Kylian Mbappe, in the 15th minute. In the 13th minute, they were going to go from Pereira, and then they were going to go in the 47th minute off of a set piece from their elite Argentinian center attacking mid, Angel Di Maria, amazing goal. And then their goal in the 52nd minute would be a historic goal for their elite young forward, Mbappe. He would be the youngest player in Ligue 1 history. He would be the youngest player to ever reach 100 Ligue 1 goals ever in history. So, of course, a historic goal for him. And, of course, another brace as PSG looks to retain their form. As after Lyon, they have to face off against Lille, the team that they're now sitting at the top of Ligue 1 with. And then they have to face Bayern Munich for the first leg of quarterfinals to give a sense of what their schedule is looking like. And with this loss, Lyon is now sitting 3 points behind PSG and Lille in the table. And PSG and Lille are tied, but PSG has 15 more goals scored, and they're going to face off against each other. And unless both teams draw, PSG should be able to run away with Ligue 1 for the rest of the season with this. With that said, I'm looking forward to today's soccer. There's not much going on as the biggest soccer games are going on in CONCACAF men's Olympic qualifying for U23. So with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 47 minutes of my piece. March Madness has been kind of crazy, but I want to thank you for helping me get through this entire first week. After today's games, after tomorrow's episode, it should be kind of smooth sailing. But once again, stick with me. Today is Monday, March 22nd, 2021, out here in this quarantine. This is The Elite. I'm James Sims, signing off, and I will be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening to my piece, and peace out. I'll catch you tomorrow.